Welcome back to the show. We got another great one lined up. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. Remember, you can follow us by joining the Freedom Zone. All you have to do is click the join button right here underneath any title, or down in the description box. You can join on YouTube or Patreon. There's a link for each one. Make sure you join us in there. Every daily video, 0 Google ads. That in itself is worth the price of admission for less than the cost of a cup of coffee per month. You can't beat it. Plus all the extra content that we're getting into inside of that group. I love, 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 love it. Let's look right now. $2.78 trillion market cap for crypto. The market's off 0.3%. Bitcoin 84,300 plus. Ethereum 1,500 plus. It wants to be 16. XRP is $2.19. Now we're up 6.3% in the 24, and we're up 5% on the 7-day. We'll keep an eye on it here. But you know what I'm really waiting for? I'm waiting for that legislation to pass. We're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to hear from Senator Tim Scott. We're ranging between 206 and 222. I'm loving where this is going right now, but we'll see some TA before we get out of here today, too, to kind of check on it. I'll tell you what I'm absolutely excited about. It's what Digital Asset Investor and myself have worked out for all of you, as we've done for ourselves. It is a great opportunity, and for years, we have been looking for the perfect solution for our digital assets. I believe we have now found it. And it is Caleb and Brown. And we've been watching them for 3 years now. They've been at every XRP Las Vegas. So we take our time to get to know people. We don't rush into things here. But this is what I've been waiting for since I got into crypto. Listen to this. This is real. No more worrying if I've been hacked, if my transfer went through, or if I set my buy sell limit orders, my market orders correctly. With Caleb and Brown, I finally have institutional grade custody for my XRP and a real person I can speak with anytime I need support. That is unheard of in this digital asset space. You actually can pick up a phone and call a human being and get an appointment and talk to a real human about your assets if you're concerned. That is unheard of in this space, and that in itself should make you want to sit down and talk to these people. It's remarkable. They've completely eliminated the fear of losing my assets or struggling with self-custody. Caleb and Brown is redefining what service should look like for everyday investors. This is a total game changer. Click the link underneath the video and get started opening up your account. You won't believe it. That kind of white glove service where you can call and talk to a human being, literally like mirroring the traditional investor in stock market. You could pick up the phone, set markers, go, hey, you know what? I want you to sell at 850. I want you to sell this much at 850 or this much at 5, or whatever you say. That's how it will go. And it's an amazing feeling. It feels surreal to be able to speak to a human being. I've already done it, and it's incredible. So click that link and get started. Let's get the same level of protection and service in the digital asset space because we deserve it. And they're doing it at Caleb and Brown. Right here, I'm reminded of the old saying, pride comes before the fall. Now, I played this yesterday, but I need to set this clip because we got a lot of new stuff to look at today in relationship to what's happening here. Take a listen.
China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
Well, you got that right. You will survive for another 5,000 years. But I'll tell you, here's the problem. You existed for 5,000 years before you had the U.S. and this, that, and the other, and all this chest pounding pride, arrogance. What am I really seeing here? Well, I'll tell you what the truth is. The truth is that they may have been around 5,000 years and be around 5,000 years after the U.S., but they have 6 million factories in China. And if you don't have the U.S. economy to make things for and send it to, well, you might be around another 5,000 years, but it ain't going to look like the same as it does right now in your country, because there's 6 million factories you got to keep going. And I love how they say that we're being bullies. Isn't that interesting? So it was okay. It wasn't them bullying when the tariff was high on their side for all of our manufacturers, right? No bullying there. That's just the way it was. Listen, China will break to Trump. I can see it coming. They're trying to elude that they're in strength right now, but the truth is that China's in a deep recession. Nobody knows it better than President Trump and Scott Bessent, the U.S. Treasurer. That's why they're doing this right now. This isn't an accident. President Trump says China wants to make a deal, and they're in the process of figuring it out. They are in the process of figuring out because it's unsustainable. You know what the U.S. Treasurer said when China said they're going to raise tariffs to match it, what U.S. is doing? He said, so what? Because he knows that we got deeper pockets. We can go longer here. However long you want it to go, we can go longer. That's what the U.S. knows, and now's the time to get it done. And they will. And they will. Just like they've gotten it done with over 75 countries already. So now, in retaliation to all of this tariff news, what have we seen? And this starts to spill back into our world, the digital asset world, real world asset tokenization. It's reported now that the Chinese government, in retaliation, has offloaded 50 billion of U.S. Treasury bonds and placed a limit on future purchases of U.S. dollars. And it's also reported that an Anon buyer is purchasing European bonds instead. This is a form of retaliation. And the U.S. has known that this would be one of the things that China would do, and they've known it, and that's why they're doing this.
Administration and the Kitzler at the SEC, they just didn't like crypto. What I've said very often is simply this: we must innovate before we regulate. That means allowing innovation to happen here at home in the digital asset space is critical to American economic dominance across the globe. The good news is President Trump is leading the way to a crypto revolution, starting here at the Banking Committee, and that's why we've moved very quickly the Genius Act, focusing on the crypto world. That's how you get things done. It's passed through my committee in a bipartisan fashion. Next, market structure on its way to be heard in the committee, marked up, and I believe passed into law by August. Under the Biden administration and
and there you have it, that last part.
To be heard in the committee, marked up, and I believe passed into law by
August. It starts again, but he says August. That's what we're looking at. August. We're going to have the crypto legislation for digital assets. Why am I showing you that after showing you that China is responding by shedding its position in U.S. Treasury bonds? Because we know that right now on the XRP ledger, we see OUSG, right? Ondo Finance working with BlackRock to tokenize the Biddle Fund and all of the bonds on the XRP ledger. That's happening. What else? The real USD, highly coveted, has an NYDFS bit license, cleared, green light. It's unbelievable. We're seeing all of this set up because the world is moving to a new system. And in the process, we have the executive director of digital assets, Bo Hines, talking about how they need to accumulate Bitcoin quickly before it becomes more expensive. Take a quick listen to this.
Where it goes. I think that we're certainly at a pivotal point in history in which technology is changing the way that people think about asset classes. And, you know, I think one thing that's different about Bitcoin than gold is that, you know, we continually seem to find more gold. We just do.
They've been talking about mining gold off of asteroids.
Correct. I mean, we know how much Bitcoin exists. It's just a question of how quickly it's going to be mined, right? And, you know, at the end of the day, I think that we need to be just cognizant of the fact that there is that limited supply that's out there, the finite supply. And as a country, we need to also understand that there's just a strategic long-term interest in accumulating as much as we can and doing it quickly before it becomes more expensive. Because I think that's naturally on the horizon, just given the principles that undergird it.
There you have it right there. So accumulating digital assets. And of course, they feel this way about Bitcoin because Bitcoin doesn't have a real deep use case at this point that makes it stand out in the space, because it's 7 to 10 transactions per minute, right? And then you got the high cost fees, right? The whole bit, you can't put anything else on it at this point, but you could put Bitcoin on the XRP ledger. And I think ultimately you will see that. Take a listen to this very quickly here.
Much more pro-innovation. We want these industries to grow at home.
When you say most of the 125 million you had parked in that little fund in case of the worst case scenario, what's left? Can you give us some?
The SEC is going to end up with a $50 million. The U.S. government's going to get $50 million. We've even talked about making that available in XRP.
Oh, there you have it. We've even talked about making that available in XRP. So while you have Bo Hines telling you they're trying to figure out how to accumulate as much Bitcoin as they can for a strategic reserve, we're also hearing Brad Garlinghouse talk about the fact that they may pay that fine in XRP and not dollars. And that may end up going into the digital asset stockpile. And why would all of that be happening? Because they're passing legislation. And why are they doing that? Because they need to tokenize real world assets, because we're dealing with a change and transition in the monetary system. And that is being done through a series of negotiations through tariffs. And in order to get that deal done, they're going to drive manufacturing back to the United States. At the same time, they secure a new deal, because we're going to be tokenizing the world. And as we tokenize the world, we're going to collect those assets in a reserve and stockpile. So that way we can strengthen ourselves and our position in the new digital on-chain economy. As we move to this new system, we know we have to be prepared, because there's always that argument about gold and Bitcoin. But what we're really witnessing is real world asset tokenization, and how that tokenization can outperform the traditional asset classes. Take a listen.
We've seen the Treasury Secretary in the US, he said, a recession is coming. It is happening. So recession happening, that means overvalued stocks will continue dropping. So people will, instead of covering their margins, they'll close their positions. Once they close their positions, they don't need to sell Bitcoin anymore, right?
Yes.
Then they might invest more into Bitcoin. And this is, we might see Bitcoin go up again and the correlation becoming negative rather than positive.
And one last question, Ryan. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about the change in the U.S. approach to Bitcoin and crypto more generally. To what extent do you think, with all the, I know you're quite negative on the U.S., but you think that the changes on the U.S. markets could, the change of the U.S. government approach to Bitcoin could maybe in a way save or give another boost to the industry in the US?
100%, absolutely. So the winner out of all of this mess that is happening, in my opinion, are virtual assets, Bitcoin and other coins, especially the ones that are linked to real world assets. So yes, absolutely. In all of this, yes, relatively negative on the US for many, many reasons, but the positive out of it is the departure of Mr. Gensler, more crypto-friendly in the administration. And let's not forget, when you own the second largest Bitcoin reserve in the world because of seizures, you want this asset to flourish. You don't want it to go down. So yes, I do see a second life or third or fourth life, whatever you want to call it, and Bitcoin in the US, absolutely.
Well, it's interesting because what I see is the same thing, and I see it, as I've told you multiple times, it looks like Bitcoin is going to be a financial Band-Aid. That's how bad this is going to get for a short period, to get that short-term pain out of the way for the long-term gain. And I think they're going to put everything like the kitchen sink at this, including Bitcoin, in order to get us through this transition. And at the same time, we're going to see the tokenization of real-world assets. That's the larger part of where this is going. Just like the news about Hidden Road being purchased and acquired by Ripple for $1.25 billion, which will then start to move $3 trillion annually tokenized and settled on the XRP ledger using real USD and XRP in flow where applicable. This is amazing because we're seeing this massive step. Bitcoin are scared to death right here. There's no question. They're just confused. They don't know what to make of it. They're terrified about what they see. You can see it on their face. They don't know what to do with it all.
Feels like they have some real institutional power now.
We have real institutional power now. Dude, like, whoa, what do we do about this? Look at that face. Yeah, I didn't know they had $3 trillion getting ready to go on the ledger. Bitcoin only has $1.5 trillion market cap. Uh-oh. He's chin scratching, trying to figure out how to deal with it. Well, you're not going to deal with it because, look, we have talked about this over and over and over. Crypto is a very small piece of the tokenized pie. If you want to really get the big bang for your buck in this space, you got to figure out where you personally believe the projects that will win in tokenizing the traditional world of finance. You figure out who's going to do the majority of that, and you'll be doing something. Now, I know what I personally believe who's involved in that, but that doesn't mean that you do. It's not financial advice. But the reality is that's where the larger part of the pie is, tokenizing the actual world as we know it. That's right. You're talking about numbers like this. Trillions and quadrillions. That's what we're talking about. And we know that the derivatives market is really poised because Hidden Road was acquired by Ripple to settle $3 trillion in derivatives. So we're already getting confirmation that we're spot on to understand this way. It is designed to accommodate this large size of market over time through adoption, through tokenization. That's how we're going to get there. And then in the interim, with 18 different straws in one XRP ETF milkshake and BlackRock rumored to enter and become the 19th, how long will it take to get to the bottom of the milkshake with 19 straws drinking from the same glass? Oh, and don't forget the market makers who will need to use XRP every day also. The flywheel effect is right around the corner. And this is what the flywheel effect looks like. This is an old diagram from back in 2022 showing people how the flywheel effect goes through the banking system. Bank A, money to XRP, to the market maker ODL partner, to XRP, back to Mexican pesos, to Bank B, back to the customer. They get the funds. What we're really seeing is the Nostro Vostro accounts. Normally, the money goes right to the bank to make this payment. What they're asking them to do now is to take the cash here, go into XRP, the new payment rails, the new bridge payment rails, eliminating pre-funding because you just have the XRP and you use it. So you can cut out that hop right there. You're just in XRP. Boom, went to it. That's what we're talking about. But as the world tokenizes from dollars and also stocks, bonds, other derivative products, right? That tokenization puts more into the XRP bucket. That tokenization puts more on the XRP ledger. Meaning, if you go back to the derivatives conversation, right? About derivatives market and Hidden Road and the 3 trillion, which is clear sign that that's where we're headed. You go to the derivatives market and start asking yourself, what would do better when, let's say, 100 stocks are fully tokenized versus the rest of the stock market that isn't? The tokenized stocks, the ones that are go to market ready to tokenize right now, I believe will outperform massively from the ones that are not tokenized. You know, the same way that people were putting .com on things to attach their brand or their company or project or idea to the .com era. I think we're about to see the same thing again. You're about to see tokenization become a very real buzzword. Real world asset tokenization, fractionalized stocks. All this is about to be the same kind of impact and buzzword because we're going to see the drive to tokenize, and that's going to push everybody onto a new payment rail a new tokenization. And in the stock market, I'm telling you, the ones that you see tokenized first will start to outperform the stocks that are not tokenized. They will be in more demand. There's no question. They're easier to get a hold of. People could buy fractions of it instead of a whole share. This is going to be another felt flywheel effect, I believe. Now, what else do we know? We know that David Andofato from the St. Louis Fed talks about how Ripple could be used in clearing like the Fed.
If we wanted to extend the concept one step further, I'm not saying that this is ever going to happen, but just conceptually, you could imagine not FedWire for all, but kind of like a Fed coin, where what the Fed would do is actually just issue these, Bitcoin-like objects, but and they would enforce a par exchange rate with the U.S. dollar. That would eliminate the exchange rate volatility. But they could delegate the clearing of these payments to some third party, some sort of Ripple-like protocol or
we do belong to FedNow, and FedNow is the new upgraded version of FedWire that he was just discussing. So this gets more interesting by the day now, doesn't it? And when you talk about settling quadrillion or more in derivatives over time, you're talking about providing the level of liquidity that Ripple and the protocol and the XRP ledger could serve the size of market for the Fed for clearing and settling. Because the goal has always been this. We remain more committed than ever to the simple goal of making XRP the world's reserve digital currency. Well, maybe it's a bridge currency, better said today. But this has always been the goal, to complement the monetary system to settle derivatives. And we're closer now than ever before. I really do believe that. Hi all, says Dark Defender here. I hope you're well. XRP is close to a daily resistance so that we can expect a bounce. This resistance will be eliminated in a couple of days, he says. Resistance 222 and 255, support at 188 and 204, targets 285 and 585. Enjoy. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. Oh, it happens to be my birthday today, so I hope everybody has a wonderful day. I've been having a great weekend with family and some friends, so I hope that you all have a wonderful day too. That's my wish for all of you. So I appreciate all of you for watching the channel and tuning in every day. And I tell you, it's not lost on me. I'm super grateful for my life, and I'm super grateful that you all allow me into yours. I do not take it lightly, and I say thank you to each and every one of you. And at the very least, please hit the like and subscribe and share with somebody you know. I'll catch all of you on the next one.